Hey everybody, welcome to the Collecting the King show. This is a special edition. Actually, it's another special edition with book author Joe Tunzi. But before we get started, I want to remind everybody to subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Also, make sure you like the show, especially if you like the show. And then finally, hit the bell so you can be reminded about all future shows coming up. Okay, so don't forget, subscribe to the show if you like the show, and even if you don't like the show, go ahead and subscribe anyway. Okay? All right, so I'd like to welcome back to the show Mr. Joe Tunzi. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good. Good to be back here.
I'm glad you came back, because we were actually trying to do this for quite some time.
Yep.
But you had to go to L.A., right? You were in L.A. for a while, so that had a lot to do with it. Let's talk about you as a collector. What's your favorite thing to collect, and how's that going?
Oh, it's I think the LPs, the 45s, the EPs, the cassettes, the reel-to-reel tapes, the 8-track tapes. That's really what I collected when I was younger and still collect today, you know. So I would say a little bit of everything. Some personal items, memorabilia, of course, too. Show items that were given at the concerts, advertising, slicks, original artwork. Bought a collection of original artwork. So basically, I think there's a little bit of everything. I have a lot of I probably have every LP, every EP, every 45. Maybe not the one Good Luck Charm. I don't have that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're not the only one.
I don't have that, but I do have a lot of there's a few other pieces probably I don't have that were promo. But that's basically it. You know, it was, you know, you start with the albums, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you go to realize that there's more and more and more.
What is your favorite collectible then? I mean, if you got a little bit of everything, what is your favorite thing to collect?
Well, you know, I do like autographs, personal autographs. I like, I got a couple of pieces of jewelry that Elvis wore. And it's like I said, a little bit of everything, and I like a lot. Japanese albums were always I think the epitome, right?
There's something about Japanese albums that, you know, I don't know, something about that obi.
You know?
That obi.
The obi was...
And sometimes they were gatefold.
Yeah.
And then he had a bonus poster. Yeah, there was something really great about that.
Some of them made Elvis look a little Japanese, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like Fun in Acapulco, they got Elvis, he looks a little Latino.
They made his skin darker, right? Like he had brown and his hair and everything, and kind of made him look Mexican.
Tried to make him look universal for whatever they...
Right, for whatever country.
A guy that went to Japan, you know, a friend of mine. He would go to Japan for the service or whatever it was, I think military base or whatever it was. Once or twice a year, he'd go to Japan and, you know, hit the record stores. And, you know, I'm talking about in the late 70s, early 80s. So,
are they your favorite records then? I mean, out of all the Elvis records that you collect,
I wouldn't say they're my favorite because, you know what, it's hard to really say. Like, what's your favorite Elvis song? It's hard to say. You know?
Yeah.
It's hard to say what's your favorite of Elvis. I mean, to me, I think it's a loaded question in a way, you know, because I can't really say. I don't think anyone could really say.
Well, people have asked me that before, and you know what I do? I take the first song that pops into my head because there's so many of them.
Yep.
You know, so if you were to ask me, bingo, I would say Suspicious Minds.
Okay.
I don't know why, but that's the first song, and then Marie's the Name of His Latest Flame would be second. So but I love a lot of Elvis songs.
You know, I would probably say If I Can Dream if it came to my head because I remember that. When I bought the Worldwide Gold Award hits, first volume, and which had the souvenir photo album in it. But when you listen to all 50 songs and you get to that last disc, you know, and you're listening to it, and this is about 1970. When you listen to that last one, you see the the manifestation of how Elvis's voice is just...
It changes.
Yeah. You go from Heartbreak Hotel to Kentucky Rain. I remember listening to I'm Leaving when it first came out.
That's another one of my favorites.
And I'm going to tell you, that to me was like, wow.
Yeah, why wasn't that a bigger hit?
I know.
What the hell happened to that song?
don't know.
I mean, it was so good. I remember hearing it on the radio, and I thought, oh my God, this is the next Suspicious Minds.
Oh, I know.
It's going to go right through the roof. And it went nowhere. I mean, it charted, but
Sorry, I think 33 maybe.
Yeah, it's like, what in the world was going on with that? It's a brilliant recording. His voice is fantastic. The orchestration, arrangement, everything about it is fantastic. But you know what I think? I think it was too unique for Elvis. It didn't sound like an Elvis song. He was doing it different, which is what I give him, praise for. But it was so different that I think the general public was like, who's this?
He sang it in a higher key. And when you listen to La 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 La, and you listen to that on the radio, when you're hearing it, that's the only song that I ever had to go and say, is that Elvis? And all the other ones I could pick up and I'd know immediately. Then after about, 20 seconds, I said, oh, that's Elvis.
I remember if you listen to the outtake, one of the outtakes, or the master, at the very end, you can hear one of the people in the studio go, man, that's a hit.
Yeah, even Elvis, I think, thought it was going to be a hit.
Out of the stuff like records and you could even say CDs, I don't know, but anything that Elvis put out, what do you think will go up in value?
Well, I think that some of the paper, like what you have on your wall.
Yeah, the record store posters, yeah.
These are rare. And you know what? I'm finding out a lot more people collecting them. That stuff's never going to lose any. That's going to go up.
It'll always go up. Yeah.
The movie stuff, that were theatrical releases where you had the one sheets and the giant posters and the lobby cards. I think the early movies, from 56 to say 61 or 2.
Well, especially the record store posters, because they were, most of them were thrown away or given to somebody who knew the record store owner, and they said, oh, well, when you're done with that poster, can I have it, and that kind of thing. But they're so incredibly rare. As a matter of fact, the one I have is the actual record store poster for Roustabout when the movie came out in 1964, or when the soundtrack came out, and they sent these posters. And they were unique in many ways, because what they did is they took a slick, because if you look at the poster, it's just a slick glued onto a background that was painted with the RCA Victor and main entrance and everything to make it look like a carnival. And the slicks were just put on there. And that was done almost in all those posters from the 60s. But those are incredibly rare. When I first bought that, I think I paid $200 for it. And the last person that offered me $800 for it, and I didn't take it. Let's talk about the Chicago shows. Okay. Both you and I were at these shows. I was at all three, different days, of course. The first show I went to was in '72, and I went to the matinee show, which was at 2:30 at the Chicago Stadium, and I believe that was June 17th. Is that right?
It was a Saturday.
Yeah, because Friday night was
the first show. Saturday was the second and third.
Okay, so I was there at that show. You were there. What do you remember about the show? What stands out to you, and where did you sit?
I sat in the balcony, actually. If you knew the Chicago Stadium, it had a lower tier and an upper tier.
Right. Well, they had a mezzanine.
They had a mezzanine.
That would almost go like at a slant.
Yes.
And then the balcony was above.
The mezzanine had all the refreshments and stuff. I sat in the upper, not the floor, but the upper part of the stadium to the right of Elvis. Okay, so I would be Elvis here, and then I'd be on. We were on the right side.
Now, what happened during that show? And you know why I'm asking you this. That really kind of stood out. What
was the cherry bomb?
Okay.
Elvis says I got shot.
Right, exactly. Right. And now, where were you sitting in relation to where that was?
I think the cherry bomb was on somebody threw it on the main floor. I remember that it was about 10 or 11 rows back from the stage.
Okay.
And I also remember a guy who was close to it who was dressed like Elvis. He had he looked like Elvis. He had almost the look that Elvis had when he at the Forum in '70, wearing something like that. And It wasn't too far from where he was sitting. Now, I don't know if he did it or whatever, but it was quite a thing where Elvis said I got shot. There's a lot.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I seem to remember Elvis stopped. Everything kind of stopped. It wasn't long. It was a pause. And then that's when Elvis said, I got shot. And then after that, the song started up. Do you recall that?
I think you're right. I think it was, I'm trying to think if it was My Babe or something different. It wasn't a song that was from the first night.
Right.
It was something that it was that he did in '69, My Babe. I think, and that might have been it. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I think he was beginning it. The cherry bomb went off. I got shot, and then he went back into it.
We're getting older, so it's hard to remember.
It was about, I would say, 6-7 songs in. It wasn't late in the show. It was early on in the show. Just had the shirt on, I know that.
Well, since you brought it up, what was he wearing when you saw it?
Oh, the two-piece. He was wearing the kind of the paisley shirt with the jacket, the white jacket, and the white pants, but no jumpsuit. And I remember it was a cool, sunny day. I remember Friday night, I can tell you the weather, because we had about 7 or 8 people that went the first night. We went in a van, and then the second night we had 4, and we went in a car. But the first night there was a massive thunderstorm, and the next day it cleared out, and so the afternoon wasn't that hot. I would say maybe 70s, 72, 73, but the building was warm.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Yeah.
Because I know he only wore the jacket for maybe 3 songs, 2 or 3, and then I remember he took it off.
Put it back on for American Trilogy. And when he did Trilogy, we had the coat on.
I was disappointed because when I went there, I was expecting a jumpsuit. He's wearing a coat and a jacket. What is this? But I mean, it was Elvis still, so I didn't, that kind of went away after a while. But I remember a friend of mine went to the night show and he was wearing the powder blue jumpsuit and he was saying, oh, well, I saw him with the blue jumpsuit. Yeah, you schmuck,
I think you would have saw a jumpsuit. Maybe if that air conditioning, he didn't get wind of it because, Esposito and all those people, they would communicate and they may have told him that, it's hot in here.
So you're saying that you believe that he wore the jacket then because of the air conditioning? He thought that it might have been too much?
I don't know. I think he would have probably wanted to wear the jumpsuit maybe all 3 shows. If you look at Madison Square, you didn't see him in no 2-piece for all 4 shows for a jumpsuit.
After I saw the show and everything, this album came out. And I remember when I looked at the back and the songs on the back, I went, wait a minute, that's the Chicago show. I mean, it was almost identical.
Yes. The Chicago Stadium was, for us in Chicago, would be like Madison Square Garden is to New York. Chicago Stadium was pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say it was as big as the Garden, don't get me wrong. But it had its... It had its iconic moments. A lot of people may not know this, but the Bears played a championship game because the weather was so bad. They actually played it in the Chicago Stadium.
Really?
A football game.
Really?
In the Chicago Stadium. They put dirt down there and everything else, and they played a championship game.
And what year was that?
Man, it goes back like the 30s, I think.
So tell me about the 76 show then. Where were you seated for that?
76, that would be probably in the lower, on the floor, about maybe 50 rows back, I would say. I
was in the balcony, but I think I was off to the, like if the stage is here and he's looking out, I was in the balcony up here, but it was pretty far down. I remember the show. It wasn't my favorite of the 3. But I remember that show. I was disappointed that he didn't do America the Beautiful. I thought there was a beautiful rendition, I remember, of Love Letters on the 15th. He did a fantastic version. And when that soundboard came out, I had a tape of that show. And the tape cuts. They flipped it over on the other side. So that Love Letters is not, intact. Because he did a fabulous job. Yeah, I thought it was pretty unusual to hear that song because he didn't normally do that one. And then Blue Christmas, I know he kind of ended with Blue Christmas, and that was kind of like,
I don't know. Where's my America the Beautiful, man? Come on.
Yeah, but it was appropriate because it was October, right? And Christmas was coming.
Yeah. And
so.
he was playing the guitar. Then he did It's Now or Never, I think, at the end, which was interesting too, because I think that was for Joe Esposito. I think that those, all the Chicago shows, a little step above.
77, I was in, I was directly in front of the stage, but I was all the way across. I was in the upper seats because it sold out pretty fast, and I couldn't get tickets. So I ended up getting like the cheap, the nosebleed section.
Yep.
I'm going to show my. This is my ticket, or not my ticket. I was given this ticket. This is the actual ticket from '77, and it's unused. It says in concert, Elvis, showtime 8:30 p.m. Doors open at 7 p.m. And this was the Sunday, May 1st, 1977 show at the Chicago Stadium. It was given to me as a gift. Howard DeVorn gave it to me.
Yes.
From what I understand, this ticket was, Al DeVorn had gotten these tickets for family members, but I believe Howard or whoever it was for couldn't make it.
There's another thing that will go up in value.
Oh, the ticket stuff?
Ticket stuff.
Or an unused one.
Unused one, in particular.
Yeah, definitely.
I saw some of those unused tickets. The Pontiac, Michigan. You get a complete ticket from Pontiac. Boy, I bet you that's a good 500. Madison Square. Aloha, of course. I wasn't going to go to May 2nd. I was only going to go to the May 1st because I had to work on May 2nd. There was a guy named Stu Collins from WIND who was giving away tickets for the 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to be in the kitchen listening to the radio when he was on saying that there's going to be a free ticket giveaway.
Mm-hmm.
And damn, I called thinking I'll never be. And this was like, this is really weird. Okay. So I called and the producer was on the phone saying, sorry, you're caller 9. We're looking for 10. I hung up. I said, shit. Caller 9, looking for 10. And so I called back, and you're caller 10, and got the ticket. So I had to go to a gas station where the guys had the tickets on Oak Park Avenue, and I had to drive, I think, 15 miles to pick up. And then I went on the second, I took off of work.
Those were the days, getting tickets where you pick them up at a gas station?
I thought I had to go to the station, the radio station, to pick them up downtown.
But they had them at the gas station.
The guy who had the tickets, who wasn't going to use them, I guess that's how they worked it out.
Let's talk about the book from '72. Now, this came out in 2022, right?
Yes. Well, this one is the Chicago Blues Encore Performance 7.
And this book now is exclusively to that show, right? To those two performances or three performances in '72?
It's exclusively to the one in the evening. There isn't a lot of photos of that show. I think I got the best. They weren't shot. Some of them were a little soft, but there's a lot of great photos in this book from that evening performance.
Now, these are photos that you got from somebody who was there?
Well, actually, no.
No?
These photos were from the estate. Actually, I got them because they wanted some photos for some of their projects. So I did a deal, a trade basically, for some of the ones that they wanted from the 50s that I had. And I said, I'll take those photos from the 70s.
Yeah, and there it says June 17th evening show. In the book, the page I like is this one here, over here, because it's got the WCFL survey that they handed out in the record stores. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And you're right, all the pictures are the blue suit. Now, there is one shot of him, look, where he's wearing the jacket.
Yep.
Right there.
It's a prelude. I wanted to prelude everything before that evening show.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go. There's the jacket back on. Actually.
Oh, this is when he put it on the second time. Yeah. He's actually got it over his shoulders. He doesn't have it on. Like he's wearing it over his shoulders.
If I remember, like I said earlier, the American Trilogy would be coming up. And I think he put the jacket on.
And again, here's some more pictures of him with the jacket.
Yep.
And of course, there's a nice shot here where he's got just the shirt and the pants, where he obviously after he took off the jacket. And of course, you even have it documented here that says it's the matinee.
when I did the first book, back in 1990, I purged the Chicago Sun-Times for the best photos they had from that show, because, like I said, the media covered it pretty well. And I was lucky enough to meet a guy named Bob Fila. And Bob gave me, with the Chicago Tribune, permission to use some of the photos in the first book. Now, Bob is a noted photographer and took some great shots, actually. If you looked at the first book I did back in 90, you'll see the photos. And the thing that Bob, the two shows that Bob was at, were the first show on the 16th and the matinee on the 17th. So what I'm saying is Bob Fila's photos match up exactly to those.
There's a picture of a girl. Let's see, where is it? Right here. Okay. And you can see she's holding a souvenir, from that she obviously bought outside. And it just so happens I have a bunch of souvenirs here that I wanted to show people that were from those shows. This is the picture. Now let me tell you about this picture. This is from Al DeVorn, Al DeVorn's collection. And I remember Al telling me that these were sold outside of the Chicago Stadium and they were illegitimate. They were not official souvenirs. And so he would have the security guards go out and they would confiscate these things. And that's why he had all these copies of these things. But anyway, there's a picture in the book. All right. And I can't, let me see if I can show it again. There's a picture in the book of a girl actually holding that souvenir, and you can tell she's standing outside. Another great thing about this book, too, is just below that, there are pictures of people like sleeping outside. That's how you had to get tickets. Yeah, this is absolutely cool. This is a great book. Really great. I mean, especially if you've been to Chicago. This is awesome. This is really cool. And then another note, too, I wanted to mention is you have articles in here that were written about the shows.
Mm-hmm. The second book features Elvis in the October 15th, 76, which again, you don't have many pictures from it. There was a few photographers who took some, but I ran into a guy who took like 37, 38 slides, and we negotiated a deal. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to put him in this book because it features that show in particular and another show that I was at, and I thought it would be a good idea just to round out the series. We began with 72 and the first volume in 90, and now 2024 we're ending with Encore 8.
There's no plans to do another one after, right?
No.
So this is it?
Yep, Encore Performance 8, the final, I think the final one.
Okay.
And it covers a lot of those shows in the Encore Performance series I was at. So it's kind of a little scrapbook personally,
right,
for me.
And this is 76 and 77, both shows.
This would be 76.
Okay, just 76.
Yes, just 76.
Okay,
so we covered 77 in another book.
And this is the other Chicago show. So this is 77. Okay, so this one is called Back in the Windy City.
Yeah,
Encore Performance
6.
Is it 6 or 4?
Oh, yeah, that's 4.
That's 4. So this was 76.
76, October. And there's some shots from the 14th, too, which was a prelude to the 15th. We always
right. I remember this suit, too. It was a very unusual suit. I was so far away in the balcony that, it was very hard for me to tell what exactly the suit looked
like.
like.
The Elvis Presley Boulevard album with that suit.
Is that why you used the text from Elvis Presley Boulevard?
It had twofold, because he left Memphis from Elvis Presley Boulevard. There's pictures of him leaving Memphis to come to Chicago.
Well, I'm just saying it's kind of cool, though. It's kind of a cool idea. It looks because I remember when I first saw the cover, I went, oh, that's kind of like from Elvis Presley Boulevard.
Yep.
So that's cool. That's definitely cool. And these photos came from where now? For this book?
This is from a private guy, not a professional photographer, but a friend of mine that had. I found out, we're talking about Elvis, and he says, hey, I had a buddy that took some photos, on the 15th. So are you interested? I said, yeah. Well, let me see what they are. And he came over to the house with 2 boxes of slides, and I looked at him. I said, you know what? It's a fill a gap, because I didn't have enough. And this is what happens. You know, you think, you probably run into this yourself. You know, out of nowhere, somebody calls you, out of nowhere, you go somewhere, you see something, and it's just out of nowhere some of these things develop. You don't really plan on them, but, you know, it just happens. Like the first book, Encore Performance, when we did the Chicago book in the beginning, to get the license from the Sun-Times and from the Tribune was nearly impossible. But there was a guy that I befriended by the name of George Watson, who worked in the archives, and he liked what I had to offer, you know, on a book on Elvis with these pictures, since they're going to be probably, who knows what's going to happen with the negatives. And I figured we'd get a chance to do the book. And he said, yeah, you know what, let me go to bat for you and see if we can get these pictures licensed. When you do a book, unless you're stealing the pictures, you know, direct, or, you know, not having any kind of moral character when you do a project, then I guess it's okay.
Aren't some pictures considered like public domain that you can use? But you know, but if it's from a photographer,
whether it was Banja that I worked with or any of the photographers, Hank Della Spinazzi from Newsweek, on and on and on, I paid every one of them, and the deal was cut with their agreement.
Do they sign an agreement? Is that how you do it? They sign a piece of paper saying that you have permission to publish it?
Of course. And as a publisher, you maintain the rights of that book. And usually the photos do come in with the rights. It depends on what deal you sign with the photographer. Any or all editions is usually what I do. Some photographers have disagreed with that and said, no, every time you print a book, I want to get paid. You know, I said, okay. But usually in these books, they're collector's books. We're not going to reprint. Maybe at the end, we'll do a box set of books, you know, the 10 books that were the best sellers, and we'll put it in a nice slipcase, something like that, when, you know, the 50th anniversary of Elvis's passing.
I wanted to show some of the souvenirs. These are all from Al Devoren's collection. I just wanted to show some of the things that I bought, or that was, you know, at the concerts in Chicago. I already showed this. This was the bootleg.
There was more than just this stuff being sold. Mm-hmm. They had to stop a lot of people.
Oh, I know.
But the big thing was the shirts.
Oh, the T-shirts, yeah, right. I remember it was like a carnival outside the stadium. Here's one of the tour books I remember getting, and I told you this was the book I remember getting in I don't think it was 72. I think it was later.
This was 72, but they may, like you said, they could have had a lot of stock in there pushing it. Yeah,
I think they did, based on Al's records on souvenirs, how they were sent to them, how they distributed them through the concerts. But I remember buying this tour book. I had this one. I remember this tour book. All right. This one I got later, though. This was in
75, I think.
70. I must have got this in 76 then.
Yes, you got that.
Yeah, at the 76 show. This, believe it or not, I remember, I don't know why, but I remember this from 77, and I don't know why. But I remember it well because it was cardboard. You know, it's not a paper poster. It's kind of a cardboard type thing. And I remember getting this I'm pretty sure this was in 76 or 77, but I definitely got it in Chicago. But this would be too early to say 72, right?
No, 72.
It is 72.
Yeah.
Maybe it was 72, but I remember buying it. I pulled these because I remember buying them at the souvenir stand. I remember buying this at the souvenir stand as well. This is a tour photo, more or less. It's got the boxcar thing down at the, you know, at the bottom there. They say Boxcar Enterprises, and of course the facsimile signature down here. But I remember getting this. This was probably 72 as well, right?
Right, 72. Yeah. Jack, I think that was Florida, the same as the Madison Square Garden album.
Could this have been Chicago 72 that I got it? Okay. Now this for sure was later. I remember this one. This one was definitely in 77.
And you got the small version.
Right, there's a bigger one.
Yeah.
Right, there is a bigger one. Then, of course, we got buttons. This is one of my favorite buttons, and this one is so cool. It's just a great-looking button. Don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great shot of Elvis and everything. It's bigger than the other buttons.
Yep, and it's a great shot.
So this would be 76?
76.
Okay. Like I said, I know I bought these. I just don't. I don't have the kind of memory where I remember exactly what show I bought them at.
Tough.
But even these pins, I can't remember.
There's quite a few of them.
Yeah, there's different variations. I've got that one, and then I've got I Love Elvis and Elvis in person. And then, of course, I put this one in a frame because this one's a little more common. This is Loxie Sibley too, right? Loxie Sibley, the artist. Yeah, but it was a bigger print too, wasn't it?
Bigger print.
It was a smaller print than a bigger one.
Yep.
So that's
77.
Yeah, and this is pretty much the same size as this one here.
Yeah, this is the smart size to buy, actually.
Yeah, yeah, because it's easier to frame and whatever.
Yeah, because I got two of the big ones, and then, they get dinged.
You got to be careful when you bought stuff. Okay, so those are the souvenirs. So let's talk about the future now. You got another book coming, and this one I'm kind of excited about because this one looks like it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, this one here's the follow-up to the first one we did, when we did the definitive vinyl artwork for the covers of the 45s and the albums and the EPs, and we put the original photo that they used uncropped.
That was really cool to see what the artwork looked like, or the picture looked like before they put the titles.
Some of them were exact, but a lot of them had been retouched and eliminated some stuff, and all those fascinating facts are in the book. And we go into the second part of the book, which is the back covers. Now, this is really kind of more interesting than the front, I thought, because the pictures on the back on some of these albums were so small, and they did a lot of work in retouching that a lot of fans don't know about, but they will now when this book comes out, because it'll give you all the insight into the art department's look at some of the things that they wanted to change, basically. And I'll show you. For example, if you look at the back of the Frankie and Johnny album, there's a small little picture of Elvis, but you don't see the two ladies in the picture. They were airbrushed out. In the back of Speedway, you're going to see this image finally. You get to see like the full image, or most of that image, now how it looked. And the same goes through for the
Fun in Acapulco, right?
to the picture sleeve. Quite a nice photo. Getting back to making Elvis look. Remember we talked about that? He looks a little more...
Yeah, he looks a little more Hispanic. Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand that. And now, here is something this is the original art for in person. That was the original layout. And
that's pretty cool.
And this was, and I can confirm all of this, from the guy that I got him from, which was a guy named Leo Paz. Leo, he passed away, but I bought his collection before he passed, and which really enticed me to pretty much seal the deal on doing this book. So it's just not going to be pictures of the back covers, even though that would make a great book, but we've added a lot more to the book than just that, like this being shown for the first time. And this is the original Elvis now.
That's wild. That's pretty much the same, probably around the same photo shoot, right?
From 71. But
is this also Banja?
I think Banja came into the picture in 72 with the garden, and he touched me. That's when Banja came into focus, from 72 to 76.
Okay.
Or 77 when I was in concert. That was Banja too. But no, this was the original photo that they were going to use for Elvis now, which became a picture in the back of one of the catalogs, the Elvis Presley catalog. And then the original...
That's really interesting.
Yeah, this is the original art for the Wonderful World of Christmas. It was not going to be a montage of all these little Christmas...
They put it in squares. It's a traditional Christmas thing where it looks like a bunch of squares, and you open each up as the days go by towards Christmas.
That was the idea. I think this one's a little more cleaner looking.
Yeah, I like it.
And then there's a couple more. And here, it gives you another idea. This was in back of a great photo. This was in back of the in-person album, Elvis in-person album. And you can see that, what a great photo, but it just doesn't have the impact.
Does he have the sweat?
Yeah.
Because I remember the sweat when the album came out. You could actually see him sweating.
You really see the bead of sweat.
Yeah.
On the album, you got to, it's just not as clear, but you get to see it real clear in the book. And then the original Elvis Presley Boulevard, they had a picture of Graceland in that corner. Originally, they took it off, but there was a photo of the house.
And this
It's undoctored.
That's the undoctored photo that eventually became that album cover.
And then there's a couple more of which, Back Up Blue Hawaii, the full image. And then like the EPs. Look at that great shot of Elvis from Follow That Dream, but on the EP itself.
It's just a little dinky thing, and it doesn't even look good.
So we got to bring those photos out and get to see what they are. And the final one, this was the original. This is fascinating. This was the original Madison Square Garden.
No kidding.
Yeah.
The dark blue suit?
Yeah.
Wow.
From April.
That would have been cool because then they would put over here on the other side, right? They would
Yep.
put Elvis recorded live, or as recorded at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, that was the original. And then they switched it back. And this was the one that they really had approved. But then again, they scrapped it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I want to say is that they used several pictures and several ideas
Before the final. Yeah.
So when somebody thinks out there, that they just took a picture and they put it on, well, it looks that way, obviously, but it wasn't the case.
So are you referring to the fact that
The artwork.
what Ed Banja had said? Because I remember him telling me, because I remember asking him about a couple shots, like I think it was Raised on Rock, because it's red, the red tint to the picture, and I guess he was under a red light or something. And I remember asking Ed about it. I said, "What do you, this is not really the best shot of Elvis." I said, "Didn't you have something better?" And he said, "You know what? I would show stuff to the Colonel and say, 'This is what I got,' and the Colonel would say, 'That's fine, use it.'" And so he basically said, and I'm quoting Ed Banja.
Yeah.
He said the Colonel didn't give a shit what went on the album covers. He says just pick whatever you want and throw it on there. Are you referring to that?
Yeah, I'm referring to that.
Okay, but that's not necessarily true.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Look, the art department has a job to do. They're not only doing Elvis, they're doing all other covers.
And they work for RCA too,
Yeah.
so they're not going to just put anything.
Yeah, and they took a lot of pride in their work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did they cut corners here and there, like doing a black and white back cover of Madison Square Garden or Elvis Now? Yeah.
Yeah, they cut corners on that one.
They did. But did they work diligently to make it the best that they could? I think they did.
Mm-hmm.
After talking to some of those people who worked on it, on them over the years, they were pretty dedicated to producing it. And they knew they had Elvis. And, Parker, again, he's always the fall guy. And, of course, Banja was bitter, maybe for reasons that I don't know, but he didn't like Parker. Banja's in the camp to, critique Parker to no end. I'm in the camp that I think there's a lot more to dissect. I'm not saying that Parker was perfect, but I'm saying that he's far from what a lot of people think he was. I talked to him on several occasions over the years. I met him a couple of times, and I just knew that he loved Elvis, and you can see it when you talk to him. You can see a guy who loves somebody, and I'm not saying that Parker was a perfect person. Nobody is. Let's face it. I think he's an easy fall guy. Mm-hmm. I think Parker would take the fall.
He did kind of invite that criticism.
Yes.
Because, he was always in charge. I remember in the Madison Square Garden interview, he said, "Okay, my reputation as a good guy, I'm cutting it off." And I've seen a lot of footage of Colonel. And then, of course, I've talked with Sonny West and a lot of the people, Joe Esposito, and they, everybody had various opinions about him. Some people really liked him. And other people, I'm pretty sure Sonny was not too thrilled with the Colonel.
I don't think Parker was thrilled with a lot of those.
Well, of course not. Yeah, yeah.
They looked at, Parker saw a lot of things that he probably said, they're thinking, I'm taking advantage of my boy. I am. You see what you're doing? There's a lot of that goes on, and it's tenfold with Elvis and the Colonel compared to our own lives too, that we know, that we have people that we sometimes don't get along with in family and friends, and there's issues and people say things and do things. That's always going to happen. But with Elvis and the Colonel, it's under a spotlight. And I just think, again, that the Colonel was, I just think he was brilliant. And you know, that's just the way I, you know, see how, looking from, not as a person who thinks that he put Elvis on stage to make money and Elvis shouldn't have been there, you know, like the movie, I think, you know, they just pretty much take him down.
Elvis had faults too, and you know, I've seen some documentaries on him. You know, let's face it, it was a very strange life that both of them had. And the Colonel did what he did, and Elvis did what he did, and there's good and bad in everyone and everything. I will say that, you know, based on all the people I've ever met and talked to, you praising Colonel much more than any person I have ever heard. And I've heard some good stuff, don't get me wrong. I've heard people praise him, saying he was a brilliant man. He was one of the best promoters in the business. He was a smart businessman. He knew how to, you know, to manipulate things. But I also hear on the other side when people said he also knew how to manipulate Elvis and manipulate his career, manipulate his personal life. And so, you know, it's a tough call with the Colonel. It's not an easy one where he was either all good or bad. I think it's a mixture.
I think that in that business that they were in, it would be hard for anyone to be perfect all the time.
Of course.
In both of them.
For everything that they both did right, they did things wrong. You know, and I'm sure the Colonel made a lot of bad decisions, and I'm, you know, convinced that there were several decisions he made that were bad. But I'm also convinced Elvis made a lot of bad decisions too. You know, if he really wanted to break off with the Colonel, he should have done it. And there had to have been somebody somewhere along the line that could have done it. Yeah. And I will not give the Colonel 100% credit, and I've said this on my show before, about finding Elvis. Like, if there was no Colonel, there'd be no Elvis. That's bullshit. In my opinion, bullshit. Elvis was on the rise. And just like Jerry Lee Lewis was, just like Johnny Cash was, and all the people from Sun. And I believe strongly that if it wasn't a Colonel that come along, somebody else would have seen it, and somebody else from Decca Records or whatever the label was would have bought Elvis's contract. I just don't like the fact that people say, well, there wouldn't be no Elvis if it wasn't for the Colonel. I just don't believe that at all. Yeah. Elvis was so big and so famous and such a talent that somebody else would have come along. Now, whether or not it would have ended the way it did is different. I mean, you know, maybe it would have been for the better. Maybe he wouldn't have been as big as he was with the Colonel. But my point is, he still would have been a star. He still would have been a major influence, and he probably would have stayed more towards the rock and roll aspect of his career and not gone into the movies and the nice Family Guy and Blue Hawaii and all that. Because once he did the 68 comeback and he got on that stage, everybody knew this is Elvis Presley. And I believe somebody else would have seen that.
There's no doubt that Elvis's talent was, you know, immense. And that, you know, it's sort of like, would it have been bigger? Who knows? You know, if somebody else took him, you don't. But
you don't know how big.
I'll go out on a limb and say that for the most part, I think he made some awful good calls. Mm-hmm. Were they all 100%? Probably not. But I'm going to tell you, I think he made a lot of them.
You know, we could do a whole show on Colonel Parker.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Might want to do that someday. All right, well, I think we pretty much covered everything. I was going to ask if you had any final thoughts.
Your show is a must for Elvis fans. Some of the other ones, you know, they're okay. They got some work to do, and they could be right up to you. But I'll tell you, for now, you're holding the mantle, bringing up a lot of different interesting subjects and not the same stuff. When you do your show, you don't want you want to finish it. Some of these shows, you watch them, and man, I'm there for 5 minutes. You know, I know what they're going to say. I know what they're going to do.
Well, it's a challenge to keep it interesting.
Like you said about collecting, there's only so many things we can collect. That's why you got to broaden your spectrum when you collect.
But there's different ways to look at collecting too, and there's different things to collect. So I've been lucky to be able to, you know, try to find something new each time. You know, plus all the filmmaking I did, that helped a lot. You know, 10 feature films, that helped a lot.
Well, you're one of the renowned Elvis dealers. Like when I went to Memphis and saw you set up, I was excited about it.
You know what? That reminds me, before I forget, I actually found some footage of you from one of the shows. So I'm going to dig it out, and I'm going to put it on. And right here, folks, you're going to see Joe Tunzi at my show back in the 90s, I believe it was. Of course, the bad part about that is you see how we've aged.
Yeah, I know. That's what I don't want to see. But hey, that's the way it is.
That's the way it is.
And you can't change that.
Joe, thank you so much for coming, man. I appreciate it.
You are the best.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Keep doing it.
Thank you.
I'll be here if you have any more ideas.
Okay. Well, God willing, I will be here too. So
of course you will.
Hopefully everything will go that way.
Everything's going to go that way because you're staying in good shape, and
I'm trying.
And that's what we have to do.
Okay. All right, folks. So thanks for joining us for this special edition. We'll get back to our regular episode sometime in the future, but I've got other shows coming up with some other guests that will be interesting for everybody to see. So once again, thank you, Joe, for being here.
Thank you.
And would you like to say the outgo?
No, you do that better.
You want me to do it?
Of
Okay.
course.
All right. This is Robert Alaniz and Joe Tunzi, and we are out of here.